I'd like to officially start our event, and I'd like to do that by first introducing myself. My name is Moiz Rafiki. I'm going to be acting honorably as the MC of this event today. And to start off, I'd like to make sure that we do thank each and every one of you for showing up. You took time out of your Saturday afternoon to come and stand with countless people around the world for a cause that we all know is extremely just, something that needs to be done. Now, having said that, we want to make sure that our protest is as effective and as meaningful as possible, and to do that, there are a couple housekeeping rules that we have to keep in mind. First of all, as I've been reiterating from the start, we have to remember that we are in the middle of a pandemic. And what that means is we need to do our best to make sure we follow the social guidelines that have been given to us by the government. Please make sure that you are staying within your bubble of 10 people. Try your best to socially distance yourself. We have a lot of space here around us today, so make sure that we're using the space to the best of our ability. Make sure you're distancing to yourself. If you need a mask, we can provide a mask for you. All of these types of things. Secondly, I want to make sure that we all know that since we are talking about things that are somewhat controversial to some people, there's always a chance that we're going to have others come and try and derail the protest in whatever way they think is appropriate. I want to make sure that we all know that in a situation like this, our goal is going to be to not engage with those people. We don't want to embolden them and give them any power or legitimacy over what they're doing. We want to make sure that we remember why we're here, the purpose of organizing and demonstrating in this way. We don't want to legitimize the actions of a few silly people and make it so that our message isn't heard. So please, if something like this does happen, hopefully it doesn't, but if something like this does happen, please don't engage with these types of people. Just try to remind yourself why we are here and the purpose for organizing this demonstration. Having said that now, I'm going to start by trying to basically give some background on why it is that protesting in this manner is so important. Why it is that what we're doing is extremely necessary. And I think it's because of a very basic truth that we all know. We know that to be silent is to be complacent. And we know that complacency is what breeds injustice. It's a fact that people around the world, all over the place, those who want to do evil, thrive and indulge on the silence of others. So, as members of the international community, as conscious citizens of the earth, as people who are blessed to live in a democracy where we have the right to organize and demonstrate like this, it is our responsibility to speak for those who do not have the power, the ability, the rights, or the freedoms to speak for themselves. And I want everyone to keep this in mind today. That is the reason we are here. We are fulfilling our duties as people on this earth to everyone else. So, we know that there's a ceasefire. We know that that's a great thing. So what are we asking for right now, though? What is the actual objective of this protest? What are we pushing for? And I think the answer to this is very simple. We know that all people, wherever they are born, should be afforded basic dignity. They have the right to live their lives with basic human freedoms that we enjoy here today. And we need to remember that what we are fighting for is that the people of Palestine and all those around the world have the ability to enjoy those basic fundamental freedoms that all of us often take for granted. With that basic message out of the way, I'd now like to hand the mic off to Brother Daniel, who's going to speak to us about the specific human rights issues in Palestine and hopefully illustrate the nature of that crisis and bring more attention to it in that manner. Here, we can also put this guy on. Okay, if you want.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. For those who aren't of the Muslim tradition, welcome. Thanks for standing in solidarity with us. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we're gathering here on Treaty 6 territory, sacred territory to the First Nations people of this land, and also the homeland of the Métis. The latest death toll, as of yesterday, 248 Palestinians killed, 39 women, 66 children, and other adults. 12 Israelis killed, including one child. All of this death, all of this destruction, totally predictable and totally preventable. And the reason it wasn't prevented was because of a failure of the international community to stand up for what's right and for what is just. And when that happens, we as global citizens have no choice but to stand up when our governments fail to do so. And that's why we're here today. I want to thank everyone for having a courageous heart to be here right now. I want to thank the Jewish citizens in this city who stand with us, whether they're here physically here today or whether they're here with their hearts. I want to acknowledge the Jewish diaspora around the world, especially in Canada and the United States, where hundreds of thousands of Jews are actually questioning what the government of Israel is doing, and they're saying forcefully, not in our name. That's very important for us to recall. This is not us against them. This is all of us together. There are young people in Israel today who are graduating from high school and are faced with having to do at least 2 years of compulsory military service in the Israeli Defense Forces. Many of those young people are actively refusing to take part. They are consciously deciding to go to jail rather than engage in the occupation. And many of those who do engage in the occupation, they end up breaking their silence. And they tell their family members, their neighbors, what it is they saw in the occupied territories, and sometimes what it is they have done. We need to acknowledge that there's a tipping point happening right now. The world is no longer complacent with what the status quo has been. The actions of the Israeli government are now plain for all to see, and despite their massive public relations campaign to make it look justified, nobody's buying the lie anymore. It is abundantly clear that there is no such thing as a moral occupation. Occupation, by its own internal broken logic, requires that it be ruthless, that it be cruel, that it be unrelenting, that it be unjust. The term moral occupation is an oxymoron of the highest order. I've been asked to speak to you today about the human rights of Palestinians, and I present to you today as a Muslim. I present to you as someone who's trained as a lawyer, but I first and foremost present to you as someone who's a human being. When we talk about the human rights of Palestinians, we have to talk about the human rights of Israelis. We realize that the oppression of the Palestinians is linked to Black Lives Matters, is linked to persecution of indigenous peoples, peoples of color, all those who are oppressed. We are all interrelated. We are all intrinsically interlinked. We are one together in this fight, in this battle for the heart of our humanity. I've been asked specifically to talk about the legal implications of what's going on right now, and it sounds very complicated. We're told that the situation in the Middle East is so complex that it can't be resolved, that it's some type of Gordian knot that can't be unraveled. I want to tell you right now, that's a lie. It's not complicated at all. What's this about in the Middle East? It's about power. And it's about one side who has all the power oppressing another side which has almost no power. And at the end of the day, we all have a moral choice to make. Are we going to stand with those who oppress, or are we going to stand with those who suffer injustice, who are oppressed? It's clear to me by everyone here today that we've made the right decision. And why is that important? Because when we talk about justice, at its very essence, we're talking about fairness between human beings. When we have fairness, then there's an ability to have justice. If we have justice, we lay the foundation for meaningful reconciliation and sustainable peace. In the absence of justice, there can be no peace. No justice, no peace. It's as simple as that. The international community after World War II came together, recovering from the horrors of that terrible, terrible slaughter, which saw hundreds of millions of people killed and dispossessed. And it created a schemata, a regime of international human rights law, which all UN member states are expected to adhere to. One of the preeminent foundational documents of that human rights law is something called the Geneva Conventions of 1949. 196 UN member states are signatories to that convention, those conventions, including Israel. I'd like to highlight 3 articles from that convention, which will very simply illustrate what the problem is. Article 27 states, the occupying power is required to protect the people under occupation. It stipulates that the protected people, in this instance the Palestinians, quote, shall at all times be humanely treated and shall be protected, especially against all acts of violence or threats, end of quote. This applies directly to the settler violence that's endemic in the occupied territories. In 2020, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs documented 771 incidents of violent settler damage to 133 Palestinians, damage to 9,646 trees, and 184 vehicles, mostly in the areas of Hebron, Jerusalem, Nablus, and Ramallah. In the first 3 months of this year, that same office has already documented 210 incidents of settler violence. This is a direct violation of Article 27 of the Fourth Geneva Convention. Article 33 provides, quote, no protected persons, read Palestinians, may be punished for an offense he or she did not personally commit. It further provides collective penalties, and likewise all measures of intimidation or terrorism are prohibited, end of quote. So this means that the demolition of Palestinian homes in East Jerusalem or the occupied territories because someone in the household committed offense is banned. You can't demolish the household of an entire family because one person in that household committed an offense. The blockade of Gaza, land, air, and sea, has been continuing since 2007. According to this article, it is collective punishment. The citizens of Gaza are not responsible for the conduct of its government. Over that time period, Israel has blockaded various articles from Gaza, such as concrete and coffee, pipes and pasta, cement and crayons. Perhaps the government of Israel is terrified what the young children of Gaza would draw on pieces of paper if they had crayons. Having seen things their young eyes should never have seen, having heard things their ears should never have heard, having witnessed atrocities that their young souls should never have witnessed. The last article I wish to refer to is Article 49. Quote, the occupying power, read Israel, shall not deport or transfer parts of its own civilian population into the territories it occupies, end of quote. In 1967, the occupation of the West Bank began. Since that time, Israel has transported or transferred more than 200,000 Israeli settlers into the 12 neighborhoods in East Jerusalem closest to West Jerusalem. Since the signing of the Oslo Peace Accords in 1993, Israel has approved or encouraged the construction of more than 130 illegal settlements in the occupied territories. And since that time, more than 400,000 settlers have illegally occupied that land. These examples are direct violations of Article 49 of the Geneva Convention. So what do we do? The time for platitudes from our politician, the time of hand-wringing by those who say, oh, we're so concerned, that time is long over. It is time for all of us to hold our elected officials to account. They are responsible for the conduct of our nation, and it's responsibility of our government to hold to account those who break international law. It's very clear. If you break the law and there is no consequence, there's no reason why you won't break the law again. That's true of you and me as individuals, and that's true of nation states. So what we need to do is we need to demand our politicians do the right thing, that they develop a moral compass, and that they have the courage to say wrong is wrong and that it must stop. And if they fail to do so, then they need to leave office and make way for people of courage who will do the right thing. I'm a lover of poetry, and so I'd like to conclude my remarks by a poem written by Robert Martin Fink, late of Saskatoon. He was a poet, an author, a writer, a philosopher, a publisher, a social justice advocate who always stood with the oppressed. And he wrote this poem borrowing from the thoughts of Einstein and the introduction to Shabastari's 14th century Secret Garden. The poem is entitled If. If we could know space's secret law, if all frozen time could be let to thaw, then we would see within every seed 1,000 harvests dwell. Within every grain waves the whole wheat field. Every water drop mirrors the seas roll and swell. In a point of space are the heavens sealed. Within every atom a starry universe turns, and through every just heart all humanity yearns. Thank you.
It should be okay. I think that's there. Okay, thank you very much, Brother Daniel. Something I'd want to highlight from that speech is the idea of double standards and how we respond to those in society, right? When we see, even in our own communities, that one class of people are treated in one way, maybe the rich are treated in some way, and people with less privileges, less understanding in that sense, are treated in a different way, that is what breeds societal discontent, is what makes people resort to unrest. So in the same way, when the international community has double standards in this sense, we think that that's also what creates these situations, and it's what elongates them and makes it more difficult to deal with on that stage. So I thank Brother Daniel for highlighting all of the different human rights issues, being able to so eloquently speak and elucidate the very specific problems, very targeted problems, and the very nuances of what is actually happening in this situation. I think that that's extremely important for us to understand. Now, up next, we have Brother Ahmed Shoker, who's going to come and give us another speech on this same issue. I invite him to come up.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillah means praise to the Lord for those who are not Muslims and are with us today. This is what the Muslim's life is about. All praise to the Lord. If He has given us a lot of provision and He is always giving, we thank Him. And if we are under pressure, we still thank Him. We thank Him for the beautiful land that we're enjoying here. We thank Him for the freedom we're enjoying here. I thank Him personally for the 40 years I lived here, for the children that He has bestowed me with, who are born Canadian. I thank Him for being equal. And I thank Him for the times when I lived in the Middle East and I have seen, on the contrary, something that my own children ask me, why is that? Why Canada is not taking a stronger stand? Why Canada does not apply what is here in Canada elsewhere? Why is the double standard? These questions are hard. So let me send some few messages with that background. The first is for you. I thank you for coming today, obviously. I'm so happy to see young generation, because that is where the change will happen. When we have these age groups taking over from the old groups that all the time will give unlimited, unconditional support to Israel. I have lots of Jewish friends here who oppose what Israel is doing. So thank you for coming today, and please keep on. Someone was telling me there is already ceasefire. Well, excuse me, ceasefire for now. We need to eradicate the problem. We need fairness. And we are going to come back and back here until the problem is addressed and resolved from the bottom. I have a few messages to share with you. First, to our politicians. Why you are asleep? If you want to be neutral, you have to be neutral with the truth. You have to ask yourself when you go to bed at night, what is the definition of neutrality? Neutrality means you stand what you think is the right thing. Stand with justice. That's what we are asked for. I have messages to our friend South, to Mr. Biden, the President of the United States. You think that the black life matters? Well, how about other lives? The lives of the Palestinians do matter. It's the principle. It's not the American life only. It's all lives. Jewish lives, Palestinian lives, Canadian lives, all are equal. All are created by only one God. And all has to be treated equally. Mr. Biden, be fair. Listen even to people in your party. We know that you can have significant influence on the Israelis. So please do that. Remember, you are going to meet your Lord. I have another message to the Israelis there and Mr. Netanyahu. 16 years in power, what you have done. Look at the rear view mirror. Look at the 16 years. Look at your Old Testament that you believe in. Look at the time when the pharaohs treated the Jewish community poorly, and God has rescued you. He ordered you to spread peace and treat others peacefully, to treat others equally. Have you done that? Have you listened to your Old Testament? You haven't, obviously. So please do that. If you don't want to look at the Old Testament, just look at the First and Second World Wars. What happened to the Jewish communities? We should listen to what people have said about what happened to the Jewish communities at the time. We should not repeat the past. Please set the example. Negotiate with the Palestinians. Treat them equally. And of course, the Aqsa Mosque. The Aqsa Mosque is not for negotiation. This is our holiest part, the third holiest part for the Muslim communities. And therefore, when you are dealing with the Aqsa, you are not dealing with the Palestinians. You are dealing with 1.5 billion. So please be sensitive to that. Please listen. And then obviously, I have to thank all of you at the end. And I hope that at one point, we'll be coming here to celebrate an end for this very unfortunate tragedy. That should not have happened. We are living in a time with fairness at the basic principles. So please treat the Palestinians equally, fairly, and be justful to them. Jazakallah khair for coming. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much. So just before we get to the next speech, I want to reiterate again that I'm happy to turn up the volume on this if it helps, but if we can please try to distance ourselves as much as possible. I'm very excited to see how many people are here to support our cause today. That is amazing. That's incredible. We do have a lot of space over in this area and more in the middle here as well. If you can please try to get some people to just spread out a little bit more. I would hate for, our protest, we are doing a good thing, but if it gets derailed and the message just becomes that we weren't following social guidelines, then it will all be for nothing, right? So I want to make sure if we can please try our best to keep socially distancing ourselves throughout this area, that would be absolutely wonderful. Having said that, I now invite the next speaker to come up. So that will be Nada and Mara. She's going to also give a speech on why we need to stand up for Palestinians on this issue. Thank you very much.
Sister, plug it in with your jacket or anything. It's just a clip.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. So as we gather here today, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. And we pay our respects to the First Nations and the Métis people and ancestors to this land. The situation in Palestine echoes a very familiar story. The situation in Palestine echoes a familiar story because there was a time when indigenous people in this country were cleared from their traditional territories, stripped from their basic human rights, and subjected to ethnic cleansing. And as it usually happens, history repeats itself. So let's call it for what it is. This is not a mere Palestinian-Israeli conflict. It is an occupation. It is a legal settlement. It is a human rights issue. It is apartheid. It is a violation of international law. And yesterday, we finally heard news of the ceasefire. But make no mistake, the Palestinian people were homeless long before bombs took down their buildings and turned them into rubble. Just yesterday on Friday, when they were congregating for prayer, they were raided and grenades were thrown at them and Al-Aqsa was attacked once again. And so we demand and we question, is this what ceasefire looks like? It was 11 days of constant airstrike. More than 240 Palestinians were killed. 65 or 66 of them were children. And these are not just numbers. Let us remember that they have names, that they were mothers, they were brothers, they were sisters, and they were children. And they also had dreams. And I'm sure you've seen the heartbreaking video of the father who had to comfort his two-month-old son because he'd lost his wife, he's lost his 4 children. And these are things that no human should ever have to experience, that no father should ever have to look at their newborn child and wonder what future would lie for them. And we can't bring back the lives of Suhaib, the lives of Abdurrahman, of Osama, and of Yahya al-Hadid, the sons of the father who'd lost his entire family. And we can't bring back the hundreds of lives who have been lost to this injustice. But as we continue to ask God to protect the people of Palestine, to ease their pain, and to bestow His mercy upon them, we have to make sure that we are doing our part. Because what happens when this story no longer becomes breaking news because the media has decided to move on? Who will stand for Palestinians when business resumes as normal? When Palestinian people are raided in their own mosques in peaceful prayer and they're becoming refugees in their own homeland. This is why we stand here today as a collective. We come from different backgrounds, we come from different countries, we speak different languages, but here we are united against this inhumanity. And we are here to reiterate that we will do our part. And so we ask, will our leaders and our governments do theirs? Because we are sick and tired of the illegal militarization of Al-Aqsa. And we are sick of our government selling arms to Palestine, to Israel, because they uphold our interests. And we are here to say that Palestinians are not going anywhere. And finally, I leave you the hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him. He said, the believers are like one body. When one of the limbs suffer, the whole body responds. It is truly sad that the only time that we can come together as one community is when tragedy befalls us. And when we realize that our hearts and our souls are in pain and are suffering because the hearts and souls of Palestinians are suffering. And it is truly sad that it takes a tragedy for us to realize that we cannot be free until Palestine is free. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much. I'm extremely happy to see that people from our youth are actually here to speak out. That was a brilliant speech, and I think it really touches some of the key issues that we're trying to deal with. I think one of the common themes in the last two speeches was the fact that right now we have the privilege of living in the present. And the responsibility that comes with that is that we learn from the past. We cannot be complacent while people around the world keep repeating the same mistakes that history has already taught us the result of. We know what happens when people oppress others and we stay silent. And that's again why I thank each and every one of you for showing up here today. You are part of the process of change, even if it doesn't seem like this one protest or one gathering is going to result in some massive change. It is our responsibility to be here. So once again, thank you for that. With that message, again, I will reiterate that as it's awesome we're getting more and more people to join us, it is even more important that we try our best to distance ourselves to the best of our ability. I know there's a little bit more space on the side over here, so if we can maybe just get people to try their best to spread themselves out, that would be awesome. Okay, the next speaker that we have for us today, we're very privileged to have one of the only anyone involved in politics at all who actually got back to us and was willing to speak to all of you about this issue. We have someone, the leader of the Green Party for Saskatchewan. We have Naomi Hunter. I would like to welcome her to the stage. Please give her a big round of applause. Because it's extremely important to understand the magnitude of what she is doing, right? We've reached out to people all across the political spectrum, from like mayoral candidates, different people, like all sorts of people. And she was the only person who's here today. So please give her a warm welcome as she comes to the stage. We really appreciate her presence here. If you would like, when you stand directly in front of it, it's like reverb, so if you'd like to move to the side, that would make it better. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's really beautiful to see so many people out here today fighting injustice. I am Naomi Hunter. I am the leader of the Saskatchewan Green Party. And there are many things that Canada can do to help with this injustice. Canada actually has arms contracts. Canadian arms contractors have contracts for $15 billion per year with Saudi Arabia. And then, when those weapons are used for their intended purposes, Canada likes to seem surprised that this is happening. We cannot be complicit. We need to call on our MPs, MLAs, and ask to stop selling these arms. This is something, a very concrete thing all of us can do. Right? Phone your MP, phone your MLA. I should not be the only politician here today. Everyone needs to take a stand against injustice. When we look at the situation in Israel and Palestine, the Israelis say that they are defending themselves. But the fact of the matter is, in international law, you cannot simultaneously defend yourself against an area you are occupying. This is injustice. This is colonization. So, as Canadians who claim that on our own lands we are trying to begin reconciliation and stop colonization in Canada, we must speak out against colonization around the world. I am very happy because all the 3 elected Green MPs of our Federal Green Party of Canada have spoken out against the oppression in Palestine and asked the Canadian government to have an arms embargo. Around the world, Green leaders internationally have come together to condemn this, and numerous Canadian political Green leaders, Kevin Arsenault in New Brunswick, Alex Terrell in Quebec, and myself in Saskatchewan, have all made statements on this issue. So Greens around the world, Israel, Australia, Germany, have now made statements all over the place. So this has become an international issue that we have come together on. We are with you. We will continue to fight for you. And I hope that the next time there is a rally on this issue, that I see politicians from every political party coming together and we can work across party lines to help with this situation. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. Also, I am a politician. I give away my home phone number. I have a website, naomihunter.ca. I am on Facebook, Naomi Hunter, leader of the Saskatchewan Green Party. I am on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. If you message me, if you ask me to bring a message forward, I respond. No volunteers, no paid staff. You will talk to me. Reach out anytime. My number is 1-306-561-8880. Thank you so much.
Let's give her one more round of applause, please. It's very important to have... Again, I cannot stress the importance and the gratitude we have for her presence here because of the fact that, again, she's the only politician that's actually joined us today, right? So it's extremely important that we value what she has brought to the table, what she said, and she did give you some contact information. So please, if you want to reach out to her to talk about this, I'm sure that she would be more than happy to field any questions that you have and give you a very meaningful response. Having said that, we're going to continue moving on with our speeches. Next, we have Brother Muhammad Abashir to come and speak with us today. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hello everyone. I would like to thank everyone who came out today, and a special thank to Naomi Hunter. She's the Green Party leader in Saskatchewan. It's not easy to speak the truth out. So our country and our government in Canada, which prides itself on peace and acceptance, has also not made a clear stand against Israeli human rights violations. We have all heard the expression, bad things happen when good people do not do something to stop them. We are asking the Canadian government from here to immediately stop trade with Israel, especially to immediately stop arms sales to Israel. By continuing to sell weapons to Israel, Canada is allowing Israel to keep killing the Palestinian children. By continuing trade with Israel, Canada is providing war funds to Israel. Our government, as a good government, need to step up and do its share to prevent bad things from happening. Criticism of the state of Israel is absolutely, it's not means anti-Semitism. It means anti-oppression. It means anti-colonialism. In the word of Marwan Kapoor, he said before, being pro-Palestine and against anti-Semitism go hand in hand because all systems of oppression reinforce one another and none can be fought in isolation. If you would like to fight Israel oppression of Palestine, show our government that it needs to step up by cutting all Israeli goods. Take a look around you. Take a look around and see the sum of the banners that list the most common Israeli product, such as SodaStream, hummus brands, as well as companies which aid Israel, such as Airbnb and HP. Show your support through the simple action and refusing to support those who support oppression. So yes, we need cessation, and that needs to happen immediately. And yes, we need a full scale of humanitarian effort, but above all, we need justice. Justice, that's exactly what we need. We need Palestinian self-determination. And we need the state of Israel to be called out for what it is. So, it's from here, a message and a question and a challenge to the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his government in Toronto. So until now, when will we recognize the Palestinian state? And when will we try to call the Israel what it is and stand for justice and human rights? And when will we loudly insist the law to be respected and Palestinians' lives matter? I came to Canada in 2010 and I lived in Palestine 26 years. I used to suffer every single day as a Palestinian. Imagine you need just 20 minutes to go to the university from your village to the university in the city of Nablus. We used to spend 12 hours because there's a checkpoints we have to go through. Most of the time, the soldiers there that don't let us in just because it's not safe. So we have to go around the mountains, and we have to go for 12, and sometimes actually more. And we are lucky if there's no trap. They're just trying to catch us. And if they catch any of the students, just to give them a lesson to not come back, they just arrest him immediately and they beat him. So this is exactly the day life in Palestine. They come to your house in the middle of the night, knock at your house and say, hey, show me your ID. It's just kind of like really a kind of oppression, not just for safety or for any other reason. So today we stand and we send a message to the government because they can do something. This is the time to do something. This is the time to lead the world, to lead the change out there. We hear you, we see you, and we know the action from any politician. And from now, we will not forget that the leader of the Green Party here today to support Palestine and support the human rights. We will not forget that. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the brother for his speech. Very passionate, very informative once again. To highlight something out of the last two speeches, both of them were very directly talking about calls of action from the government. And something that we might want to recognize is that the Canadian government, in the past, has addressed human rights issues in the international community. For example, when Russia annexed Crimea, the Canadian government was very straightforward and affirmative in saying that this was not something that is okay. They employed economic sanctions on Russia, along with the international community, to show them that when you subjugate other people, when you are oppressing other people, when you go into their homes, that is not something that is acceptable. You cannot just go and occupy other land. We were very direct when that happened. But for whatever reason, when it comes to Palestine, the rules seem to be a little bit different. Our government hasn't taken the same action that it took when Russia annexed Crimea. It hasn't taken the same action that it took in other international situations. So I think that the message from the last two speeches is very important. It's that our government does have a responsibility to act in the way that it knows it should, in the way that it has in the past when addressing other similar issues. And it's the responsibility of each and every one of us to push our government and contact them and make sure that they do act in the way that they are supposed to, that they do address this issue and bring attention to it in the way that they should be. Having said that, the next speaker that we have for you today, we are coming to the end of our program, so we thank you very much for your patience and for your presence here still. The next speaker we have is Brother Arif Juma, who's going to come and speak to us. Before he starts, I'm going to reiterate, I know you're probably tired of hearing this by now, sorry, but please look around you, try to make some distance for yourself, try to socially distance yourself from everybody else. We are here for something super important, and I'm so happy to see so many people here in support for this cause, but we do have to make sure that we're trying our best to follow the guidelines that we should be. So try and spread yourselves out however is possible. I would really, really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Peace and blessings to all, and long live Palestine. Long live Palestine. Long live Palestine. We're gathered here today to stand up and be the voices for our Palestinian brothers and sisters. They need us, and they have been needing us for the past 74 years. Palestine has been under siege since 1948, where the Zionist terrorists weaseled their way in and started taking Palestine piece by piece, kicking families out of their homes, taking their land and fields, bombing hospitals, schools, and orphanages, killing innocent men, women, kids, and elderly, cutting power and water, cutting medical and food supplies, and this has been going on for over 70 years. And this is not okay. This is shameful, and this is a disgrace and disgusting. They say there was a ceasefire on Thursday, and then Palestinians are being attacked on Friday. We shouldn't stop here. We shouldn't stop here today. We should keep moving forward and let our voices be heard and tell our Palestinian families get their rights. Get their rights to live in peace. Get their rights to be able to eat, sleep. Get their rights to have work, have schools, hospitals, and grow old. We need to lock hands and move as a unit, one body, one mindset. And not just for the Palestinians, we should do it for all of mankind who's being oppressed around the world. I have a message to the United Nations and to the world governments and to the world leaders. You should be ashamed, and you should be against this ethnic cleansing. So either step up and do your job, or step down, because we as humans are stepping in, and we want Palestine free. Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
I'd like to thank the brother for another brilliant speech. To conclude our program today, there's two more people that are going to be speaking with us. I'd like to invite Dr. Ahmed Dishi to come and speak to us on his topic.
Thank you all for being here today. My name is Ahmed. I am a Palestinian from East Jerusalem. I am from the old city of Jerusalem. I opened my eyes to this world with my father telling me that my family had a house in Palestine. I opened my eyes with my father telling me that our house in Palestine was taken away by a Jewish settler. 41 years later, I stand here because another Palestinian family
is being evicted from Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood, a neighborhood in East Jerusalem, 10 minutes walking from Bali Khalil, where my family was evicted long time ago. I opened my eyes with my father telling me that one day we should go back to Bali Khalil to our homes in Jerusalem. He taught me that, and I am teaching this to my kids. In Palestine today, 50% of the people that live in historic Palestine are Palestinians. The other 50% are Jews. The Jewish population is trying slowly to evict the Palestinian population from their homes. Over the years, when I came to Canada in 2003, there was 200,000 settlers in the West Bank. I stand here today, and the numbers of settlers has only increased. Right now, there are more than 500,000 settlers in the West Bank. There are many Palestinian houses that are being demolished, and the Palestinian land in which the Palestinians should have a Palestinian state in is only shrinking. As we speak today, there are houses being demolished and people being threatened of being evicted from their homes that they have lived in for years and years. This is because Israel occupies Palestine. This is all because of the occupation of Palestinian land. And I would like to tell you about that. I would like to tell you about the brutal, hard, harsh occupation of Palestinians. Imagine that you will go to your homes and sleep tonight. However, the Israeli government has mandated its army to go into the West Bank on a daily basis since the year 2000. So since the year 2000, and that is 21 years since that date, the Israeli army is going to the West Bank in what they call making the Palestinian people feel the army presence. The Palestinians in the West Bank need to feel the Israeli army's presence in the West Bank. How does the Israeli army do that? The Israeli army, a unit would start its shift at 10 p.m. at night. They would go and select a house in the West Bank. They would go and raid that house in the middle of the night. They bang on the doors, wake up people in the middle of the night. Go inside, and go inside every room where kids are sleeping, and they tell them and ask the parents to wake up the kids in their sleep. I ask each one of you to go to YouTube and to search for raids in Palestine, Israeli soldier raids in Palestinian territories. You will find that. The people that told us about this are the Israeli soldiers. There is a movement in Israel called Breaking the Silence of Israeli soldiers who are refusing to conscript in the Israeli military because of what the Israeli soldiers are doing now. Not only that, if a Palestinian resists the occupation, if a Palestinian would say no to the occupation, he or she can be accused of inciting violence, and that accusation in Israel equals a fancy term, a punishment that is termed with a fancy term that they call administrative detention, where the Israeli army has the right to take you from your home and hold you in prison indefinitely. They hold you in prison for 6 months, and they keep repeating the imprisonment over and over and over. Israel calls itself a democracy. I question that. democracy because people go and vote freely. Because people go to polls and they vote. However, they vote to imprison another population. They vote to control the life of the Palestinian people. They vote to humiliate daily on checkpoints every Palestinian kid that goes to school. They vote to ban Palestinians from drinking water. They vote to blockade Gaza. Gaza, people call it an air, people call it a prison. An open air prison. However, in prison you are allowed the dignity of getting humanitarian supplies. Gaza is much worse than a prison because in prison you have rights but the people in Gaza do not have that. The last thing I want to speak about is the media. On April 27th, the major Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem issued a report. This is an Israeli human rights organization. They issued a report saying that Israel is an apartheid state. Human Rights Watch picked on that. April 27th, Human Rights Watch said Israel from the river to the sea has become an apartheid state. Unfortunately, that wasn't newsworthy in Canada. Not a single newspaper, not a single news organization, and they are here today, broadcasted anything about the Israeli apartheid by B'Tselem, the Israeli Human Rights Organization, or even by Human Rights Watch. A week later, 1 week after Human Rights Watch, 1 week after B'Tselem declared Israel an apartheid state, Obama's dog died. I repeat, 1 week after Obama's dog died, the CDC thought that Obama's dog was more worthy of news than the life of millions of Palestinians that live under the Israeli apartheid occupation. We call on the media to report justly on the issue. We say to CBC, shame on you for not reporting the report. We call on the Canadian government to stand for the rights of everyone who lives in Palestine. Because we value human rights, justice and equality for everyone. I thank every one of you for coming here because it is through seeing each one of you here that we get hope that one day we'll go back to Palestine and we can dream of having equal rights for everyone. Thank you very much.
I think we can all agree that that was an extremely amazing speech on this issue. Now, what I'd like to highlight is the fact that it was very correctly pointed out. Media coverage on this issue is very different from what we would normally see in regards to this type of human rights crisis around the world. So what does that mean? Like the brother said, like the message we heard from our amazing member of politics here, it's our responsibility then to make sure that we are going to do something about it. It's our responsibility to make sure that we reach out to people in our political communities, reach out to our MPs, our MLAs, and make sure that they know that this is something that we really care about. Make sure that they know that this is a problem that cannot go without a response. Make sure they know that it's not okay for them to stay silent on this issue. So I think that's something very important that we have to take away from that speech. To conclude our presentation here today, I'm going to call on Imam Hassan and his wife to give our final speech, our closing remarks. Yeah, okay, there we go, perfect. We can give them a round of applause on the way in, yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you guys hear me? Yeah? Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah. SubhanAllah, when we got here, there was about like 10 or 15 people. And we were still ecstatic because we realized a crowd is still better than no crowd, no matter what the size. And mashallah, we have a huge crowd now. And I think there's about, 100 or 200 people here. I'm not sure, I'm not really good with my numbers. But subhanAllah, we're all here to join our brothers and sisters around the world in solidarity, to support our Palestinian brothers and sisters that are suffering right now. There are people all across Canada protesting. There are people all across the world, from Turkey to Japan to the UK to Ireland, Scotland, Jordan, literally all over the world. So you guys aren't alone. So just remember that. I want to bring up an ayah from the Quran. And this is an ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 42, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَتَكْتُمُوا الْحَقَّ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. And basically this ayah talks about those who mix the truth with falsehood. And those who actually do know the truth and they hide it. And the reason why I wanted to bring up this ayah is because I wanted to call out two types of people. The first type are those who fully know the truth, but they change up the narrative. They misconstrue the facts in order to fit their own biased agenda in support of the oppressors. And this is not the side we want to be on. And alhamdulillah, we're not on that side, as we can clearly see. The second person are those that know the truth, but they stay quiet. And again, we aren't those people. Those people are the ones that actively choose not to come to these protests, that actively choose not to raise their voices even if they can. And we don't want to be like those people. Right? So keep these two people in mind, raise your voices, and stand up for justice, as our beloved Prophet ﷺ would advise us to do. The Prophet ﷺ said that Allah's hand is with those who are with the Jama'ah. Right? We're here gathering right now. And we can't make a change on our own. We need to be together as a collective. And of course, we can keep protesting, we can keep raising our voices on social media, but we need a long-term solution. And that long-term solution is with the Jama'ah, is with the collective. We need to unite as an ummah. It is because of division that we have defeat. In order to free Palestine, in order to achieve victory over the oppressors, we need to unite. And I want you guys to keep that in mind when you do leave this protest. And just because this protest is coming to an end soon, it doesn't mean what's happening in Palestine is also coming to an end. So always keep them in your prayers, keep them in your du'as, because they really need it. Especially right now, when over 300 Palestinians have been killed over the past week, and 67 of them are children. There's literally families trading their children just so one of their children can survive. And this is an old tradition that they used to do during times of war. And they're doing it now, in the 21st century. SubhanAllah. There was literally a Palestinian mother who died along with her child in her womb. How is that just? You really don't need to be Palestinian or Muslim to stand up for this cause. You just have to be human. Right? This is injustice. It's settler colonialism. It's state-sanctioned violence. It's genocide. And we need to continue standing up for the truth. So don't let the momentum die, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. Louder, louder, louder. Assalamu alaikum. Yes, I love voices. Yes, okay. Bismillah. Is this good?
Should be good now, yeah.
Yeah, Bismillah. Alhamdulillah.
The battery's dying, I think. It might be running out, yeah. Do we have another one? I don't think so.
Sounds like today. The media shuts you down like this. Am I right? That's how the media shuts you down. It's not making shots, but you're like, yeah, well, that's the media. Sometimes video take this.
Now try again.
It was good, bismillah. Okay, it's okay, alhamdulillah. Inshallah. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين. All praises belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of all the worlds. والعاقبة للمتقين. The good end result is only with the ones who are conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين. Enmity is for nobody but except for oppressors. An oppressor is your enemy. That's the fact. If you are against that, this is not a time to be quiet. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter what your skin, what your race, it does not matter your religion. Oppression is oppression. Humanity is humanity. ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين. Can I get some slogans for Palestine? Free, free. Free, free. Free, free. Free, free. Zionist terrorist. Zionist. 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 Free, free Palestine. Muslim leaders Palestine. Free, free Palestine. I say free, free Palestine. You guys say world leaders Palestine. That's it. Free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine. I did a khutbah last week about Fir'aun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in the Quran about Fir'aun and his leader. Fir'aun is not just a person. Fir'aun is a system and the epitome, the apex, the climax of oppression. Fir'aun is a system. And that system, Allah mentioned Fir'aun so many times in the Quran. He didn't have to mention Fir'aun so many times in the Quran. But why is that the case? The reason why is because oppression will surface with different faces at different times throughout time. Oppression is going to come. Oppression is going to come everywhere. It's upon you. Allah will question you. What are you going to do about it? And the biggest weapon of Fir'aun is not used. You know the biggest weapon of Fir'aun was used, tell me. Anybody? Media. He said it, mashallah. The biggest weapon of Fir'aun was the media. Today there was a media war that was lost by Israel. What was that telling you? We are not alone, number one. We stand, my beloved wife, she said, we're together with the rest of the world on this cause. We're not on the back foot. Do not be confused. Instagram shut down my post. Facebook shut down my post. They're going to shut down my post. What do you do? You email them. You write to them. And you post again. It's very simple. You post again. It's not a time to be quiet. I congratulate everyone who is here. You are doing the work of the prophets. Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, the apex of man is the one who sees wrong and he stops it with his hand. The next level is the one who sees wrong and he stops it with his mouth. And the next level is the one who sees wrong and he feels bad about it in the heart. So I congratulate everyone who is here in standing in solidarity with the Palestinian brothers. But let's not forget the brothers around the world. Everybody. We make dua for them and we stand up for them and don't let the energy be short-term. This is a manifestation of our unity today. Today we are here as a united body. Are we? Yes. Are we? Yes. We cannot bring change alone. MashaAllah, may Allah bless my wife. I learned that from a long time ago. Unity is everything, number one. And the war against the media was launched by Israel, the terrorist state, the apartheid state. People are scared to call it. It's fine if you're scared. It's okay if you're scared. But guess what? That shouldn't stop you from speaking the truth. It's fine if you're nervous. The Sahaba were nervous. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he stood up on top of the mountain and he's calling to stop oppression, because the Quraysh used to bury the children alive because they were hungry. They used to treat women like material. Prophet Sallallahu came to change all that. He came to change the narrative. All the prophets came to change the society and free them from oppression, because oppression was the narrative and the media was the oppression. So the prophets came to change it. And you will be here, you're following in the footsteps. But don't be a prophet from that perspective just for these few minutes. Be a prophet after you go home. Follow in the footsteps of the prophets after you go home. And use the social media against the narrative. Change up your words. Don't say eviction. It's not eviction. Is that the media again? It's not eviction. It's not eviction. It's a language war. It's a language war. Learn to write. It's oppression. Learn to write. Write to your MPs. Use your social media. That's very, very important. I want something from everybody. Inshallah, everybody take out your phones right now. Just take a video quickly around and put it on your Instagram and your social media and show your solidarity with the people. I want everybody to do that right now. Please. Show your support for Palestine. Take a picture. I'm going to give everybody inshallah a minute. Take out your phone, look around you, use your social media, and use your emails, and email your MPs, and hold your politicians, hold our politicians accountable. It's not, what is that? What is a leader? What is a leader supposed to do? A leader is supposed to serve. What do they say? They say thank you for your service. But what is the service? What do we need to do? Number one, we need to unite. What's the biggest problem? What do we need to do? What do we need to do? Let's talk about unified voice, yeah? What do we need to do? Unite, number one. Number two, use social media. Number three, email your MPs. Hold the governments accountable. And number four, do not let the energy be short-term. Put your ego aside. Put your arrogance aside. Let's come together for the cause of humanity. There is a committee, I've been told there's a committee that is being formed, inshallah, for the cause of Palestine, for the cause of holding MPs accountable, etc., etc. If you want to sign up for it, and you should sign up for it, and it had an effect. I saw an app the other day, it was from Israel, and the government launched an app, and what the app does is it downloads on your phone and it recognizes keywords. If you say Palestine, if you say genocide, if you say apartheid, they label it anti-Semitism, and they take that sentence. That the app, what it does, it recognizes the words on your phone, and it gives you a comment to comment back on that post, or it gives you an article to email that person. And if anybody does it, there's a change, and we see there's a ceasefire. Why is that ceasefire happening? Why did that happen? Because of your voices. Don't think you're not having an effect. Do not think you're not having an effect. But you can't have an effect as an individual. You have to do it as a community, as a society, as a country, as the world. We come together as one. So use social media and join that committee. And then you can contact Brother Muhammad or Brother Hassan and Brother Abdullah, I believe. They can do that, inshallah. Bismillah. Let's have the slogans one more time. And remember, do not, after you leave here, I'm very, very, very serious, by the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do something else. Use your social media. Keep going off and protest. It's not in vain. Your results is not what is counted. Your efforts is what is counted. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Ibrahim alayhi salam, وَأَذِّنْ فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ. Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he made the adhan for Hajj, it's a desert. It's a desert. People are not going to come. He's like, oh Allah, this adhan that I'm calling, how is the people supposed to hear me? I'm in the desert. Allah says to bring the people is my job. The effort is your job. You will be held accountable for your efforts, and I was talking to Brother Daniel before my lesson, he said, the key word is to put the best of your efforts. Not half of your efforts, not 3/4 of your efforts, the best of your efforts. Let's get a few more slogans one more time, the few ones that we did before time runs out. Inshallah, it's almost 3 o'clock. Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Zionist! 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 We're not in the back foot anymore. This is for humanity. This is television. A mother should not die for no reason. A child, an innocent, men, women, children, be prejudiced. Zionist! Zionist! And this is not anti-Semitism. We're not against Jews. We're not the Jews. The Jews are against Zionists. That's a big misconception. This is not anti-Semitism. Do not back up. Zionist! 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 Free, free Palestine! Lower leaders, lower spine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unites the ummah ويزيد الغير. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَا تَنَارْضَعُوا فَتَفْشَلُوا وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ. Your strength will be taken away the moment you divide. Push your efforts aside and side with your brother and join hands with Allah ta'ala. Let's make dua for the people of Palestine. Let's make dua for the people around the world. Let's make dua for the people oppressed. There is no enmity except for the oppressor. If you're quiet at this time, you are siding with the oppressor. That's a fact. Imagine you see someone being bullied and you don't step in. You're part of the bullying. If you see someone being bullied and you say, you know what, I'm gonna go back there behind the scenes, I'm gonna quickly advise him a little bit. He shouldn't do that. You're supposed to stop that bullying from happening. Someone's being oppressed. Let's make dua for the brothers and sisters around the world. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله النبي الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الظالمين. اللهم أفرغ عليهم صبرا وثبت أقدامهم وانصرهم على القوم الظالمين. اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان. اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان. اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان. Oh Allah, help our brothers and sisters who are oppressed around the world. Oh Allah, help our brothers and sisters who are oppressed around the world. Oh Allah, help our Muslim brothers and sisters around the world who are oppressed. Oh Allah, help our non-Muslim brothers and sisters who are oppressed. This is about humanity. Oh Allah, forgive our sins. Oh Allah, unite us for one cause. Oh Allah, make our feet firm. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون